In some traditions, meditating with your eyes closed is seen as the only way to meditate. Other traditions see it as a way that you start out, but then when you get into more advanced practices, you're supposed to keep your eyes open. So, which one is it? Should I keep my eyes closed or should I keep them open? Well, that depends. First of all, it depends on you and your natural inclinations to how you meditate. The second thing that matters is what are you actually trying to do and which method are you trying to use? Because some methods work better with eyes closed and others better with eyes opened. Eyes closed. If you look at keeping your eyes closed, the advantages of having your eyes closed when you meditate is you take away distractions. You don't see a person walking by, you don't see the colors or the interesting things that might be in the room around you. It's also easier to focus inwards and focus on subtle sensations that are happening inside of you. If you work with visualizations or with chakras or energy, astral projection or whatever you want to do, then it's something where you're going inwards, and it would be a lot easier to do that with your eyes closed. Another thing that is worth mentioning is that for some people, after you've meditated a while, you notice that your face and your eyelids will just automatically close. To me, this happened after a few months when I've been meditating intensely. We're talking 8 to 12 hours per day. And I was sitting and I noticed all of a sudden, as soon as I sat down, and I would go like this, my whole face, I can feel it right now. My eyelids get shut and my face just goes like this. I don't know why that is. It just seems to be something that happens for some people when they meditate. It just automatically, you relax the whole body. There's like this pulling feeling down, like energy pulling down. So for me, it would almost be impossible to actually sit down and go into deeper concentration states with my eyes open, because my eyes just automatically close when I sit. So for me, I'd say that doing body scans, doing some kind of inner work, looking at sensations inside of you, it's just a lot easier to keep your eyes closed. It's also great if you have lots of stuff happening around you. Like I said, anything working inwards, I really recommend keeping your eyes closed. One thing that I did notice is whenever I had a course, there would always be 1 or 2 people who would open their eyes after a while. They just wouldn't close their eyes when we were meditating. And I would sit and I would guide the people and I would say, okay, now you close your eyes and you sit, and then they just open their eyes up, and everyone like, can't they follow instructions? Like, this is not difficult, just close your eyes. And I would say it again, and they kept their eyes open. So I'd asked them afterwards, and it turns out that for some people, it can be really intense to keep your eyes closed and focus inwards. Some of them had suffered from PTS, anxiety, or panic attack, just too much stuff coming up. So in that case, actually you shouldn't keep your eyes closed. Then I highly recommend you to try to meditate with your eyes open. Eyes opened. In some traditions, I've heard them say that the real meditation is actually when you keep your eyes open, because keeping your eyes closed, that's what you do in the beginning. But then when you get advanced, you should open your eyes. Why? Well, their reasoning is that when we sit down, it's so detached from daily life that you can't really use that. You should keep your eyes open, because then it's easier to relate that experience into your daily life, which is what you really want to do when you want to be mindful, in their view. First of all, I'd like to point out that when we're talking about keeping your eyes open, it's not like you sit like this and meditate. What people recommend generally when you meditate with eyes open is that you'll be keeping like a soft gaze with your eyes a bit defocused, keeping it downcast like this, like your eyes downcast like this. You're looking down somewhere, so you're not sitting in an uncomfortable position like this. I've heard people who say that it depends on what you're trying to do, that you would want to keep them up. I don't practice this that much, so it's not something I really know, but I would generally, if you want to try it, try to keep your eyes downcast, keeping your eyes half closed so you don't let in too much impressions. And then also you're supposed to have a still gaze. We're not moving around looking at things. We're keeping our eyes looking forward at a certain point, and we're just keeping it there. I personally don't use open-eyed meditation that much. I do it, I'll explain later when I go through some exercises you can do. What I do is I do walking meditation, which is almost always done with eyes open. I guess you could do it with your eyes closed if you wanted to. Generally, I tend to do it with my eyes open. So that's one place where I always use open eyes for meditation. One of the main advantages some people find is that it's easy to stay awake. During certain times in your meditation, you're going to notice that you just want to fall asleep the whole time. This doesn't actually mean you're tired. There's just certain things you go through that we won't go into here, but you just feel very tired and your mind is just pulling you down and you're sitting like this, like, I can't stay awake, I just want to sleep. And then it's definitely easier to meditate with your eyes open because it keeps you more alert. For some, it's also easier to quiet the mind, because when we keep our eyes open, we're not so into our thoughts. Again, this goes back to what I was saying when people sit down and they open their eyes when we're meditating because they find it too claustrophobic or too much happening when they just focus on their thoughts. When you look at something and your mind wanders, your vision tends to wander at the same time. So you could actually use your eyes to have feedback of when your mind is drifting away, because many times in the beginning it's difficult to notice when you're getting caught up in your thoughts and just drifting away with them. And that's because we're much more used to using our eyes than using our internal senses. When you do this, sometimes, I've had it happen to me a few times, is that you look at something, maybe a pebble, and you keep looking and you look at that for like an hour or two. Eventually, that thing, the stone or the flower, might just disappear. And at first I thought it was really bizarre, but then when you start moving your vision again, they come back kind of. So I've heard, I don't know if this is true, but I've heard that this is some kind of process in our mind that the mind does when it sees the same input over and over and over again. Then eventually it just erases it because it doesn't compute that anymore when you have the same stimuli. Your collar on your back of your neck, you don't think about the pressure it's making there. The mind just stops noticing it after a while because you get used to it. Apparently there's something similar happening when you meditate with your eyes open. You can actually stop seeing things. The main advantage is that it's closer to being mindful in daily life. It's more relatable to your daily life as you're walking around. You become aware of what it's like to have your eyes open and noticing things inside of you. If you're finding it really uncomfortable to sit with your eyes closed, that's also a good time to keep your eyes open. So as you see, the funny thing when you start moving between different traditions is that you'll notice that people say almost the opposite thing about certain things. Some people say you should be with your eyes open, others say no, they should be closed. These say the only way you do it well is when you keep it closed, and they say, well, if you keep them closed, that's because you're not really good enough. You should keep them open. So you have to choose yourself. If you want to try this, then just listen to one of my guided meditations, but don't keep your eyes closed. Instead, keep them open. And like I said before, we don't just keep our eyes open like this. We actually keep them downcast a little bit in front of us. Do a little bit like this with your eyes. You can see through the slits of your eyes, and you defocus a little bit. You can look at a stone or something lying in front of you, and then just go through the meditation like that. Another way of practicing this, which is actually something I always do, is that after you're done meditating, you listen to one of the meditations, and then afterwards, instead of just like, okay, meditation's done, I'm gonna do my stuff, whatever that is. You finish the meditation by opening your eyes just a little bit, and then you continue meditating with eyes open to feel, what does that feel like? If you sit for 10 minutes and then you open your eyes, you'll find it a lot easier to stay aware and present with your eyes opened. There's also, like I said, a feeling of mind states are very closely related to our eyes, which is again why I said that my eyelids, they just fall when I go into deeper states of concentration. So if I open my eyes like this, it tends to break these deeper states of concentration. So opening them a little bit, they can keep you in that concentration state, but with your eyes open. So that's something you can experiment with also. Going together with the whole opening your eyes after meditation, I'd say that another tip to do is that I really recommend you to try this sometime, both to get rid of the idea that meditation is holy and you can't defile it, you have to do it in a certain way. Then I'd like you to do this. Listen to one of my meditations, and afterwards, especially if you're feeling really calm and centered, keep on sitting or lying down, and then take up your telephone and look at your telephone and start scrolling through social media or surfing Amazon or whatever you want to do, and see, what does that feel like? Does it feel different when you're really calm and centered? I'm not saying you should feel any way in particular. I'm just saying practice doing the things you normally do, but with a very calm and centered mind. That's a really fun experience to do. Another fun exercise I like doing a lot, and I especially did this when I was a monk, was that I would go to public places like a train station, a store, or some supermarket or something, and I'd sit down, I'd close my eyes and I'd meditate, but then I'd open them and I'd focus on a point in front of me, and I'd just keep on looking at that point and not letting my eyes follow when someone walked by, or there was a beautiful dress or some colorful clothes or a scent that walked by or something happening. Instead, you're training your mind to stay with your object of meditation. I find this a really good way of incorporating your practice into mindfulness in your daily life. Don't be afraid to try something new. If you generally keep your eyes closed when you're meditating, try to open them in the end. Try to sit at the store when you go shopping next time and keep your eyes open and try to meditate. If you keep them open, well, then try closing them and see how that feels. There's no right or wrong here. There's just different ways. And the more you learn about meditation, you'll discover the nuances and the different textures to different kinds of techniques. And you'll realize that you can use them for different things. So what might work for you might not work for someone else, but it might be perfect for the third person. Just be aware of it and try out many things until you find the technique and the practices that work for you. So how do you do it? Do you keep your eyes closed, or do you keep them open while you meditate? Leave me a comment below and tell me how you like to practice. Be kind to yourself and keep on practicing.